Welcome to the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. Please follow us and join in the conversation on Twitter @Advisor Podcast, where you can suggest ideas and themes you'd like the TRAP team to discuss. Also remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave a 6 out of 5-star review on iTunes. Doing all this really helps us, which means we can do more to help you. Now let's head over to the studio for the latest pile of TRAP.
Yes, indeed, dear Trappists. Welcome back to what many people are calling episode 25 of the Real Advisor Podcast, TRAP, TRAP. My name is Lick Ninken, and joining me as ever are the three other horsemen of the apocalypse, Andy Hart, Alan the Storyteller Smith, and Carl the Voice Widger. Now, gentlemen, we have a show packed full of absolutely nothing, so let's start unpacking it straight away with some reviews from Mr. Hart, read in the high energy fashion. Andy, I don't care how many reviews there are, 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't look at it, crack ahead.
Okay, so the first review is from Darren Binkley, entitled Fantastic Listen for Old and New, 5 stars. A great listen whether you've been in the profession for a while or are new to the scene. Great banter between the four horsemen who all come at things from a different perspective, and the format makes you feel like you're sat next to them in the pub. There's no shortcut to experience. However, if you absorb the key messages in this podcast, you'll learn a few valuable lessons that take some people their entire career. Next review is lots of letters, so 5, 9, 7, 5, 2, whatever. Great insights, 5 stars. As someone who is looking to get into real financial advice, this podcast is brilliant. It's great to get so much information from people who are experienced. It's helping me loads. I'm currently undertaking the CII Diploma in Regulated Financial Planning. I know the CISI is another option, and I was told that the best is to get the CII qualifications. Thanks a lot. I listen to every episode of this podcast, Maven Money Podcast and Meaningful Money. 5 stars for sure. Back to you, Lick.
Fab. Thank you, dear Trappists, for these reviews. They just give us a shot in the arm, a little boost of energy to keep on doing this shambolic production. Okay, let's move on to some topical tidbits so we can put a sort of timestamp on this episode. Even though we're in the sort of summertime, and this is supposed to be the sort of quiet news time for everybody, there's quite a lot going on. And this year's Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, has put some policy idea out there to allow pension providers to allocate 5% of their pension funds, our money, dear Trappists, our money, to unlisted equities. I don't know who put that in the so-called show notes. Whoever it did,
I did.
Please crack on and comment.
Yeah, I did. Look, in some measures, this is all about sort of helping startup, early stage companies getting funding, which is all well and good, and it's a kind of noble idea. However, I don't think it makes sense at all for the average. You know, what they're talking about doing is it's not mandatory apparently, but there's a strong recommendation from government and from the Treasury that large corporate pension funds are sort of the ones that, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Miggins are members of should be allocating, or their pension fund managers or administrators should be allocating a percentage of their investments to this. They're talking about, you say unlisted, but they're talking about venture funding, so very early stage venture capital type funds. And honestly, I think this has got no place whatsoever in this type of investment. Most of us, I think all of us, listen to the All In podcast, which is obviously fashioned after ours, and they've largely copied Trap podcast. And if you listen to them at any given time, so they're all a bunch of, you know, early stage venture capitalist experts, and they say how difficult it is to make any sort of meaningful return with venture investing. And I just think those people who are active in it, the proper VC type investors, they're going to just take them to the cleaners, because it's like lambs to the slaughter. If the likes of Aviva or Legal & General, some big pension fund manager tries to invest in some sort of early stage tech startup, they're just going to get all the companies that the main VC, the active people, the really experienced venture capital managers have ignored or put aside. So overall, I'm not in favor of it. I don't think it makes sense at all. What do you guys think?
I think it's listen. I know. Okay, I think we're all cynical. Maybe I'm the most cynical of the four of us. I do try and look at these things and think, what's the upside to it? I just don't see any upside to it. I'm naturally predisposed to think if it's an idea from the government, it's a bad idea until proven otherwise. And this just reeks of being a bad idea. I don't know why they're trying to do it. I know the UK stock market is moribund anyway, and companies are listing in other exchanges around the world because of the regulation brought in by who else? Previous governments. And the way they say it's voluntary, I love that. It's like, it's not really, is it? Because it'll be, oh, that's a nice little pension fund you've got over there. It would be a shame if something happened to it, wouldn't it? It's voluntary in the same way that the mafia used to go and collect rent. So I think it's just another bad idea. Are we done on that one?
Well, just from an Irish point of view, it's interesting because we're kind of going in the total another opposite direction, where we're being bound by rules where simplification of the investments in pension funds is kind of coming into regulation. So you can't have more than 50% in one asset class and that kind of stuff, which is screwing a lot of people who've got, all property in their pension funds. So they've kind of got timelines now to fix all of that. I can't see how this is a good idea at all. And watch this space. There'll be a lot of new venture capitalist funds, I think, springing up in the UK to try and take advantage of this. And don't we just know it? Because we've often spoken about it. There'll be a lot of venture capitalist funds springing up and they'll be investing in nothing, but they'll be making lots of fees on the way. So I think it's a terrible, terrible idea.
Yeah, we're coming on to a classic example of a fund that disappeared. All its returns disappeared over time, mainly due probably to fees, but that'll be the last topical tidbit. Okay, the Coutts Bank saga. Yes, what a bunch of Coutts. Well, this is obviously for British listeners, Trappists, but I think also it's made waves around the world. Actually, it certainly demolished the reputation of this highfalutin bank for the rich and wealthy, which people like Paul Mason and Kevin Maguire on the left have suddenly leapt to its defence, which has been a thing of beauty. I guess again, I don't know who put this on. I'm guessing it was you, Alan.
Yes, it was. I've managed to unmute myself.
You're having a tech morning for the ages, aren't you, my friend?
I am. I've been away from laptops for a few weeks, so which we'll talk about later. I'm just interested, sort of the views from the panel. Really, I mean, I found the whole thing kind of fascinating, interesting, and yes, everyone seems to politicize it depending on what your outlook is. But nevertheless, I mean, God, there's so many different layers and levels here. If nothing else, this is a so-called private bank who, as far as has been alleged, and I think she's admitted it. The CEO of said, well, the whole group,
leaked,
disclosed certain private information about the
which
the
is insane.
Customers' banking arrangements to a journalist. Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, it's probably if that's true, that's a criminal act.
What
so
a
all these
rookie
people
mistake.
leaping to her defence.
I mean.
Yeah,
but they're so
we know how
entitled. They're all
dangerous that
entitled.
is, and we're not even anywhere near the position she is. It's ridiculous.
They think they're above the law.
Nick, you've got some strong opinions
so
on
Gina
this.
Miller, who's this? Yeah, if you let me talk, I'll get them out. Gina Miller, this hardcore Remainer. She has also been banned by her bank. I think it was one of these Starling, Metro. I don't know.
Monzo, I think.
Monzo, thank you.
Yeah, but hang on. This is all sort of as usual getting exaggerated. As far as I've read it, they don't do bank accounts for political parties.
Okay, but that's the thing in itself. Why not? How on earth are political parties supposed to start up if you can't get banking? You've got a uni party in this country. If you can't set up a bank account for any new parties, you don't have any new parties. My point was going to be Gina Miller is the other extreme to me in terms of Brexit and European Union, and I think what's happened to her is appalling. So I think this is a really dangerous precedent. By the way, Gina Miller's married to Alan Miller, the former Jupiter active fund manager who made a small fortune and now evangelises for passive investing, but doesn't seem too keen on giving his money away, and especially the kids who got through private school. Another story. I think it's outrageous. I think it's appalling. And people say, oh, the banks are private, they can do what they like. Well, not really. We own 40% of NatWest, but that's not the point. Banking, man, if your bank account is shut, your business bank account is shut, it must be an absolute nightmare. You cannot function without it. And I just think, and my broader point is, I don't care if you're on the left or the right, it is really, really wrong. And it just makes me laugh. These hardcore lefties, this is okay because it was Nigel Farage. If it had been Jeremy Corbyn that had had his account closed or something, they would be absolutely screaming. But you've got to have I'm very black and white. It's wrong, regardless of who they're doing it to. Unless they've done an egregious criminal act, it's wrong.
Agreed.
So that's me done.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, this one we can let's just have a little celebration. Because that great thing that's going to change the lives of all the consumers in the UK, because what they're screaming for is yet more regulation. Consumer duty is, what are we today? It's 1 day old. I think it launched on the 31st of July. Happy first day, consumer duty. I don't really want to say any more about it than that. Anybody got any thoughts about it? It doesn't really apply so much to you, Carl, but what happens here does come to you guys eventually. But it's launched.
Not always.
No, well,
like the pension freedoms, we started that, and then you guys followed. So I think it can go both ways. But anyway, on the consumer duty, I am looking out,
and they'll also see that I was deeply uncomfortable with the content of some of today's podcast, owing to the Irish versus UK cultural differences.
Anyway, as I was saying, I am looking on with interest on this consumer duty thing, and like a lot of the articles I'm reading about it are totally conflicted. So some people are saying it'll have no effect on fees. Some people are saying that fees will go up. Some people are saying fees will go down. Some people are saying it's a good thing. Some people are saying it's a bad thing. So I'm just interested to see how the people who are thinking this has no effect on anything they're doing, how that will play out for them. So yeah, I am interested in it.
Quite interesting. Our friends at St. James's Place that we had a whole podcast episode a few episodes ago. Share price.
Underestimate the power of the dark side.
Well, we've changed our views, have we?
I don't know. We've always been fair and reasonable, but the share price fell, I think, about 17% in a day when this came out. They've announced. I mean, it's a tweak to their charging. They've capped their charge. They give a 15 basis point deduction after 10 years. It's a sort of loyalty bonus. So it's hardly sort of life-changing, I don't think. But it's a sign of things to come. Maybe. They were always the kind of outlier that seemed to navigate the way through all the sort of previous rules and regulations and still have built-in exit charges and penalties when all the rest of us were told we couldn't. So interesting. So, from what I can see, quite a few of certainly of the larger advisory firms, nationals, are sort of tweaking and changing, and they're sort of looking at their bands of fees and their the various sort of discount levels and so on. So I think overall there's a direction of travel is kind of reducing fees overall, particularly around the bigger firms, but early days.
Yeah, I think the larger firms are going to be more impacted with this. They just don't have as tight a grasp of their numbers, their clients, the service offering, systems, processes, repeatable. But yeah, it's a huge chunk of regulation that's just landed, and we've been preparing for it for months.
Well, it would be unusual if any organisation, but certainly the bigger ones, if they sort of came through all this, and it's been a few years in the making and the sort of planning for a huge amount of, even a firm like us. And shout out to my colleague Shireen, who's done a ton of work on just getting us ready for this and signed it all off on in good time. But it did take us, and we're a small firm too, because a lot of time, a lot of resource, and a lot of effort. So the very, very large companies must have spent thousands, tens of thousands, millions. I don't know. So it'd be odd if they got through the other side of that and said, nope, we're all good. We're perfectly fine. We're great value, always have been. So I think they're going to have to show some action has been taken as a result of all the work that they have they've gone through. But time will tell. As you say, we're a couple of days into it by the time this podcast goes out. It'll just be interesting to see. I mean, things that we've talked about in the past, because it covers a lot of other issues, not just sort of standard fees, but things like the skimming of cash accounts that Nick's raised before. There's a number of other things which are kind of somewhat sharp practice, you would argue, which must come under the sort of overall kind of headlines of consumer duty and value and delivering good outcomes for clients. So,
right, okay, yeah,
time will tell.
All right, so thank you for that, gentlemen. Voice, the Limerick Hurlers, which is not a drinking competition, is it? I believe it's some sporting thing. Tell us about the Limerick Hurlers.
Yeah, so this one is a little bit difficult for me because if you know any of your geography, I'm originally a Kilkenny man, and Metis Ireland was born in Limerick. And the Limerick Hurlers have just won the All-Ireland hurling final for the 4th year in a row. An absolutely magnificent team. Now, for those of you in the UK and further afield who don't know anything about hurling, I have included in the show notes clips of the highlights of the recent final. Another UK counterpart said to me when he looked at it, Jesus Christ, that's grown men with sticks going around hitting each other. It's not quite like that, but it is the fastest sport in the world. It's absolutely amazing and packed full of skill. Anyway, this Limerick team, Limerick have had pretty much no success for ever and a day. And the last 4 years, they've won the bloody thing 4 times in a row, which is difficult for me as a Kilkenny man because Kilkenny are the former kingpins of the hurling world. But what I wanted to just kind of raise was a couple of things that I think we continuously link to the financial planning and investing world. Number one, this was a very long-term plan. So they set up academies and that kind of stuff 10 and more years ago. So they worked towards this. They did not look for any quick fixes. They worked towards this over a long period of time. Number two, the one word that that all the coaching staff and all the players keep coming back to is we stuck to the process. We stuck to the process. So they didn't have it all their own way this year. They had some difficult moments, but they pulled through. But they stuck to the process, or for us, they stuck to the plan. And then the last thing is, by Christ, did they celebrate? So there's lots of Twitter clips and YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff going around of them celebrating hard. So it was like these guys, talk about, we've spoken about monk mode. They do monk mode for kind of 9 months of the year to try and win this thing. They're amateur athletes. And it just reminded me of, celebrating the moments when they come along, because we all have a habit of, right, what's next? And I'm minded of listening to a podcast, Johnny Wilkinson, the England out half who kicked that drop goal to win the World Cup that you keep reminding me of
all time.
Yeah, and what did he say about after when they won the World Cup? He celebrated it for about 30 seconds and then went, right, what's next? And it's really important for us all in life to just take that step back. And in business, we've just gone through a kind of momentous barrier here in Metis and a milestone. And it's very important that we do take the time to celebrate our achievements and celebrate together as well. So I just thought I'd mention it, but definitely check out the show notes.
Okay.
Check out the YouTube.
That is interesting, and I like those stories and the crossover between sport and business. And it reminds me of a close personal friend of mine called Hugh Vivian. Have you ever come across Hugh Vivian? Hugh Vivian, who played for England, Saracens at Newcastle.
Yeah.
One of 7 brothers, and I knew Hugh quite well. I was coach at my son's rugby team, and I was chatting to him when they went into Saracens. You know the story about Saracens and how
long is it?
Crap they were. No, this, but he does a talk about this, about when I can't remember who they brought in. There was some new coaches, and he just cleared out. They had some really top players, but the attitude was all wrong. And they just, like you said, Carl, they started from scratch again. It was the Saracens, were a really mid-table club for a long time.
Dr. Brendan Venter. Brendan Venter came in and transformed it.
They brought in a load of money into Saracens and also a load of South Africans. The interesting thing about hurling is you're born where you're born and you play for that county, and that's it. There are no transfers. So, and it's a totally and utterly amateur sport. So, really? Yeah, I hear you about the Saracens thing, but it's not comparable from that point of view. You have what you have in terms of resources. They either live there or they don't.
We did an episode, didn't we, a critical non-essentials, which we drew on these sporting books that have been, the rugby and the GB cycling team. You focus on the small stuff and just nail it, and repetition and process. Very good. Capital is recruiting. I can only guess that must be you, Mr. Smith, who put that in there.
Just take the opportunity, as Carl does it every bloody week, just to do a bit of self-promotion and advertising. We are, we're looking for support members of our support team. We're growing the company, and if anyone is out there, it's probably relatively early stage career people looking to get into financial planning. in a kind of administrative role, heading through to support, power planning, and beyond. Or if anyone listening to this knows of anyone, then do get in touch. Thank you very much.
Excellent
How do they get in
stuff.
touch,
Good,
Alan?
Good plug there.
Just via the, wherever, capital.co.uk. Find me.
Right, good.
Find Shereen.
Enough. Okay, so last episode 24, we put out that we're going to do we haven't killed each other by then. We're going to do a Trap live event next year, ideally tied in with our 50th episode, which will be around 50 weeks away. So let's just say the best part of a year.
Yeah, sort of
and
May,
we've had
June
129 people say they would like to come. Now, saying they'd like to come and actually coming and shelling out for it are two different things, but a really, really good response. So I think this is a goer. Again, if you're interested, there will be a link in the so-called show notes, but I think we've already got enough of an indication that there's a market out there to do Trap live. So watch this space for that. Mr. Smith, again, the next point, a complete breakdown of S&P 500 companies.
Oh, this was Andy. What's the company that does these infographics?
Visual
Fantastic Visual Capitalist.
Yeah,
I just
subscribe to Visual
them.
Capitalist anyway. They do a daily email and they do a roundup email
daily.
on Sunday. So do subscribe to it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, really, really good. And it's just, as the name suggests, images and visualizations of really sort of interesting subjects. And the one that they did last week was just all the companies of the S&P relative to the sector that they're in. So whatever, healthcare, technology,
financials,
transport, whatever, financials, and then relative to their size. And you look through it and you kind of, everyone would look at that and say, well, I use a lot of those companies almost every day. And it's a really useful, I posted something, I think, on LinkedIn about this and got a good response because, there are some of the financially, what do you call them, Andy? Financial illiterates. There's a lot of people out there, and without being rude to them, just think the stock market, that's risky. I don't like investing. It's gambling, too much gambling. And if you just look at the companies, it's just a beautiful visualization, which is the link to it in the show notes. And people should use it with, advisors should use it with clients, prospective clients, saying this stock market is not some kind of inanimate thing. It's just a bunch of really good, well-run, organized companies. And so here's an example. Here's one. You have a quick look through it, and you will understand why it's good to own a small part of all these companies.
Well, people say they don't understand the stock market. It's like, well, you don't understand what you're buying. Every single penny that you spend is going to be directed to a stock market company inadvertently. So if you don't understand the stock market, that means you don't understand what you're spending, which may be the case. But, if you said you've got a mortgage, roughly how does it work? They give you an answer. You buy consumer goods and washing powder, they've got an answer. So they're happy to buy the products of the companies, but not own the companies themselves. It's just insane. But anyway, once they get that realization that it is real companies selling real things to real people, it does change their minds. So yeah, it's a journey that we all have to go on. Lick.
The one fund is the shopping list fund, which I said before, which I'll keep on hammering that nail until you three are broken. Okay, we're done on that point. Mr. Smith again, the challenges of consistency and no link.
Right. This is just me thinking aloud. Oh. And I was just reflecting, as you may know, I've been sort of away. I've been on holiday for best part of a month, really. And I was thinking, and I've come back, and I'm back at work today, about half a stone heavier than I left. I've enjoyed the good life. And what I was thinking about is we talk on this podcast quite regularly, and I think we can be sometimes unfair with our kind of demonizing of people. Stick to the plan, buy the great companies of the world, never sell them, stick to the long term, don't worry about volatility, play the long game, etc. And that's just information, but it's hard to do because I can tell you, I haven't really stuck to my, if you like, personal health plan over the last month. What I should be doing is exercising every day, eating healthily, getting 8 hours sleep a night. And I can tell you, I haven't been doing that for quite a few weeks. And I was reflecting on that it's easy to say, be consistent in many things in life. It's actually quite hard to do. Well, it's certainly hard for me to do. So maybe we should be a bit kinder, more gentle to people, be the advisors, be they clients, be the investors. Because it's not, there are challenges in doing that. If it was as Derek Sivers, if you followed Derek Sivers, as he said, if all you needed was information, if more information helped, then we'd all be billionaires with six packs.
Yeah.
So information is all well and good, but you've got to actually execute. You've got to be consistent. And most people are
welcome
not.
to Trap Confessions. Alan Smith's first.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay. Ashes update. Carl and Alan, you were very, very keen on giving Ashes updates for the first 2 tests. You've been quiet for the last 3 tests. Any Ashes update, or should we just skip over that?
I just like to say congratulations, rounders with T. It was magnificent for England to get a draw, and I know nothing about this topic, so I should just probably
And we
be
should have
quiet
waited
now.
for
But,
the Nick?
Carl, your previous words evidence that. Okay, well we'll let that lie for the moment. Mr. Voice, active fund manager BS. It's all about disintermediation of the value chain. Oh my God, there has to be an active manager saying that. Nobody speaks like that in the real world.
So I put the link to this article in the show notes, right? So I'm not going to actually call out, because I'm not Nick. I'm not going to call out the guy's name or the fund, right? But I read this. I don't know why, because normally I just skip over these things, but I happened to read this particular article, and there is so much language in it that I just went, oh my God. And we mentioned Terry Smith's annual letter before, and I remember, and Andy was saying, oh, it was great. And I found the first page and a half of that really good. And then after that, I felt it just went into all this mumbo jumbo language, right? So the line I took out of this particular one was, so this for me sums up active fund management. It's all about the disintermediation of the value chain. No, I'm sorry, but what the fuck does that mean? I mean, that is like, this is just like, if people can't see through that crap, well then, you just gotta, he should be saying, hey, I'm an active fund manager. We charge more than the passive funds. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that we can beat the market. We haven't done it before, and we're not going to do it again. But yet we have a line like that. And I'm sorry for using that profanity, but it just drives me absolutely insane when people are up there talking this absolute raw mash, as we'd say in Ireland. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
I don't think it's going anywhere. I mean, ever since I've entered this mighty profession, we've had this issue, and the overwhelming evidence that it doesn't work has had almost no impact on it. They continue to grow. So yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere over the next few decades. Certainly within my career, I don't think we're going to see a change in it, but I could be wrong.
Okay, Mr. Smith, achieving long-term financial security is about investing adventurously.
That's the title of an article. This is just a quick one. This has actually been out for a while. It's all about. I don't know if you know Charlie Ellis. I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of years ago.
The losers game.
I think he sits on
Close
the board
friend?
of Vanguard. Another close personal friend.
Personal friend. You bumped into him at a Vanguard seminar symposium, did you?
Correct.
So can I have a photo with you? Can you sign my book?
Yeah. No, he's quite interesting in that. So he talks about, obviously, he like we are. He's a big fan of investing in the great companies of the world, and he talks about sort of traditional portfolio being sort of 60-40 as being a common way to hold assets. And he's this article that he's written recently sort of says, well, we're thinking of all that wrongly because we're ignoring certain other factors which are kind of, if you like, sort of bond-like in our lives. So he talks about human capital, which is people don't sort of factor that in. If you are, at working age, and particularly if you're a bit younger, the value of your human capital is significant in terms of your long-term financial security, and should be factored in as as long as you enjoy decent health, the chances are that you will continue in gainful employment and you'll still generate revenue and income. So that should be factored in. He talks about the capital value of your state benefits, like state pension. That should be factored in as well. And he talks about things like property, obviously any defined benefit pension schemes that anyone's got, which are pretty secure in terms of the income generation, and also property assets. And he says for most people, when they look at owning a 60-40 portfolio, they're probably more like 40-60 or even 20-80 or something in terms of their kind of non-equity assets. And we should be looking at it in the round, in the whole, as opposed to just your kind of liquid traditional kind of retail investment fund holdings. Just thought
So
it was a
basically-
well thought through. I'll put a link to the article.
Yeah. I'll read the article, but he was just explaining proper financial planning, really, Alan. I mean, nothing unusual to someone that's been doing proper financial planning for years.
Yeah, to some extent, but there's plenty of people who are speaking to clients who've got, another 20, 30 years of working life to continue and own property assets, might have, will expect some state pension benefit, and they do a risk profiling questionnaire and end up in 60-40.
As I've said,
Yeah.
bonds should be banned from pensions for anyone under the age of 50. Should only be allowed global equities and pensions under the age of 50, just as a rough marker to get started. Contributing every single month, buying on average prices. I mean, the amount of money they leave on the table is astronomical. But again, we're not going to have regulation that's going to, enforce that. But as a good thought experiment, bonds, fixed income should not be allowed in pensions for anyone under the age of 50. Go, Nick.
In fact, we got the inverse of that. We got bloody regulation that puts auto enrolment people into bonds when they're young.
Yeah, that's
because
from a
the poor
behavioural point
poppets
of view.
couldn't take it if they saw a decline in value, which of course they have seen a decline in value over the last 18 months. So let's see how that pans out. Just the unintended consequences of legislation.
Right, final other point from Alan.
Smith, you've got an item.
Self-promotion.
You've got a podcast down under, my friend. Oh, do mention. When we finish this, and I'll tell you how the Ashes work, so you can get a few ribs in at your friend Stuart Bell. Crack on.
Yeah, do that. Although he's English. In fact, I think he's Welsh. Do Welsh play cricket? Anyway, I'll mention it too. Yes, by the time this pod goes out, I'll have done it. But he would do a live webinar. A guy I mentioned him on this podcast before, Stuart Bell, or Dairy Consulting. And he's got a lot of good content. Interestingly, when I spoke to him the other day, he said, when I mentioned it, his website and his content on Trap a few episodes ago, he didn't know that I'd mentioned it, and he immediately got a load of downloads from .co.uk websites. So that's the influence of Trap. But now, as a consequence of that, he's invited me on, so we're going to be having a live webinar type thing. I've got to do it 8 o'clock in the morning, which is 5 p.m. Aussie time in Sydney. So that's an early start.
Let's see this.
But I didn't know what we're going to talk about. Hopefully, it's interesting. He's definitely got a lot of good ideas, and good content. He's a consultant to financial planners down under, very sort of large and strong financial planning community in Australia. So I'll put a link to that if anyone wants to tune in as and when. Thank you.
Are we going to have a subscription model so you can skip the ads?
So that's hello, Mr.
Coming from
Kettle,
this guy.
Mr. Pot. Yeah.
Oh, very droll, very droll. Okay, well, I have got that in my calendar, Alan, so I should be looking forward to listening with that, and good luck with being Compass Mentis at 8 a.m. Okay, the final topical tidbit. I think it's the final one. This is a massive one, actually, and Mr. Hart has raised this. The bloody GARS funds. I mean, Jesus Christ on about everything wrong about the industrial side of our profession in one fund. Mr. Hart, crack on.
Yeah, so I think the GARS fund, which stands for Global Absolute Return Strategies, it's an absolute honey trap for investing illiterates. They love to hear that sort of description of a fund. So I believe it launched in 2008 to great fanfare, and at one stage in May 2016, drum roll, it was valued at £27 billion, I believe. I think it was the biggest fund we had in the UK. I mean, Terry Smith's fund, I think, is the biggest in the UK now, and it's not even near those numbers, or it's close to those numbers at the moment. Anyway, the amount of fees that this fund has generated is astronomical every single year, even if we just sort of be kind to them and say it's about 1%. So they've just extracted so much wealth from your typical investor, and now the news is they've merged it into one of their similar funds. I think the value of it now is down to $1 billion. The performance of the fund since it started, obviously it had some good years, that's why it attracted some people. But over the last 10 years, it's been absolutely horrendous. It's basically done nothing and lost money, I believe. Yeah, so people get excited about this. We bang on about it all the time, that we invest in things that have always worked. We try and avoid anything which is working now. Again, that thing mentioned earlier about 5% needs to be invested in. That's, again, something working now. And then, obviously, the GARS fund was working now. And then, we try and avoid it. So, yeah, this GARS fund is, been a bit of a thing in all of our sort of professional lives. But, yeah, we've all avoided it, I believe, which, thank God. So, yeah, who's next to comment about GARS. Over to you,
Well,
Nick.
I'll quickly throw in just to say that we saw, before we started recording, that we saw a graph of the returns of this fund, and it's basically flatlined since 2013. But your point, Andy, what we know as because this thing of ours, we're immersed in it. Most of the money into that fund would have flooded in
At the point
after
of the high,
that initial strong relative performance through the credit crunch and everything else. So even the good years, the vast majority of investors in that fund wouldn't have picked it up. They'd have picked up that trade, like Kathy Wood's ARC fund.
Yeah, that's what I was
They'd have
thinking.
picked up that
It's like the ARC fund. It's the
would have all gone
UK's
in
version
at
of the ARC
perfectly
fund.
the wrong time. And again, another risk that I bang on about that almost nobody talks about is a risk of low returns. So imagine if you had a typical client that invested 100,000 in this fund and it's just gone nowhere and lost loads of money. If they just invested in a normal, global equity fund, that would have done about 200% in the last 10 years. It's just ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. But hey ho.
What wasn't one of their selling points that they had their own pension fund? So Standard Life's own pension fund was predominantly in GARS. So wonder how that went for them all.
Yeah.
How did they talk to their own people?
Do you know? I mean, this was so popular. I mean, in the in our sort of mastermind group that the UK members of us, it used to be talked about a lot. I remember, and a lot of advisors piled into it, and it was in the back because I mean, when did you say it was launched? 2008. It was launched, after the banking. Global sort of banking
again at the
financial
perfect
crisis.
time.
Perfect time. So everyone was feeling a bit sort of raw and bruised by having sort of a lot of volatility in the previous couple of years, and so piled into it in huge numbers, really, really significant. But I remember looking at it in some detail and looking at the the fund fact sheets in detail. I'm not sure if everyone would have read them because a lot of it was currency trading. But it was really sort of complex kind of hedging strategies. And I remember seeing this thing, and it said, because it would list all the trades they had on it, or certainly the top 10 trades. And it was something like the Mexican peso versus the Swiss franc.
Was it like a currency swap thing?
Like a currency swap type thing. And I'm thinking, this is for, widows and orphans and Mrs. Miggins and what. They have no clue that there's all sorts of weird and wonderful currency swaps and hedging strategies built into it. But inevitably, you did do quite well for a bit. And then everyone piles in. And as you say, it's the amount of wealth that has been destroyed by sitting there for the last however many years versus just buying global equities. It's crazy.
Why wouldn't our regulator look into this and work out the fees that have been paid and the wealth that's been lost? It'd be madness. Sorry,
Don't
Nick,
look to regulation as a saviour. The regulation's the problem, man. Regulation's the problem.
Saviour, yeah.
Carl made a point before we started recording that he doesn't, don't invest in something you don't understand. And the GARS. Although, Alan, if you were near convention time and you were just lacking on your days of going up and down the high streets of North London, flogging Standard Life products, would you have had a go with GARS if it had been around?
No.
Alperton, whoa, Alperton. I can see my wheelbarrow filling with props signed by the weak and willing. I was 21 when I owned Alperton.
Brilliant,
drop.
Nick. You've excelled yourself this
Busy
week.
week, Nick.
Do I have to explain? Do you have to explain what that means to anyone?
Well,
Yes,
just
do.
put some context of the area.
Just
The famous Alperton.
just
and
very
Wembley High
briefly,
Street.
my early days was spent working for the aforementioned Standard Life, as was great company when I was working for them. And I was a broker consultant. My patch was my geographical area was kind of northwest London, including Wembley. A place called Alperton is a suburb of Wembley, and I did used to walk up, and that's brilliant. I love that jingle, that drop. I used to walk up. It was referred to as the proverbial wheelbarrow. I'd walk up with my wheelbarrow and knock on all the sort of IFAs, financial advisors, and accountants' doors.
That used to work out of like carpet shops and like taxi offices.
Garages, jean shops, literally. Chuck in the props, and
which is an application. A props and application.
Chuck in the props.
Chuck in the props, boys. So, and that was Nick. So well done, congratulations. He's made. Well, that's Glenn Campbell, I believe. Originally,
that was the late great Glenn Campbell. Actually,
Galveston has now become Alperton. We've got a new drop. That was funny. And you surprised us all. None of us knew that was coming. So.
It's been on the board for a few weeks. I haven't had the right opportunity, but I thought, okay, GARS. I mean, so
yeah,
the GARS
GARS was I predated GARS. It didn't exist when I was working for them.
You were just selling with profits.
I was selling with profit.
You're selling with profit, which actually is the forerunner of this kind of thing, isn't it? Opaque, completely indecipherable.
Yeah, we'll get you solid returns no matter what the market
low
does.
returns guaranteed, poverty and retirement.
But these things appeal to human beings, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, whether it's with profits, whether it's GARS, it's a nice sale.
They appeal to lazy advisor. They appeal to lazy. You're right.
Tracker bonds, the same, yeah.
2008, 2012, you couldn't take a piss without a GARS salesman standing next to you at the urinal, could you? They were just everywhere. And now it's just this stony silence. Anyway,
I remember when I set up originally in 2010, it might have been 2011, but the GARS fund manager salesman thing was down in my office, and
it was massive in Ireland as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, massive. And it was like I was an idiot because I wasn't putting my clients into it, and I wasn't putting my clients into it because I genuinely was afraid I'd be asked a question because I could not understand it. And that's a fact. And it was like, whoo, thank God. Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
R.I.P. GARS.
I wonder if the introduction of Consumer Duty, it seems very coincidental that they pulled the fund sort of the day after Consumer Duty came in.
Well,
because
it's
hard to justify, merged it, she just closed it down, isn't it? But it'd be hard to justify that as a value for money thing under Consumer Duty regulations.
And what's the other piece of regulation that the FCA's got in, Alan, that fund managers need to prove that they're...
the fair value assessment.
Yeah.
It's just... God, I mean, how are they navigating all of this regulation?
So they've had to do that for the last few years. And listen, they're not the only fund. There's plenty other funds.
No, I get it. We're just highlighting the big one.
We're highlighting this
not
because this was the biggest by some margin. So some board somewhere has to have signed that off every year.
There's
for the last
been a lot of Ferraris bought and a lot of school fees paid via that GARS fund, and it it's part of our profession, and it really does grate me. So anyway,
look, can I just chuck something else in here just briefly that we hadn't rehearsed or talked about in the past? So somebody chastised me recently online because I've been sort of having a moan and groan about a couple of things. It was about fees and a number of other things, and people saying, why do I and by association, why do you and why do we talk about negative things in our sector? This is all negative. We should be promoting and highlighting the positive aspects of it.
But we do both. I think
it's part of our. Yeah, well, I think we do, and I think when we identify things that we say are, whatever you want to call it, sharp practice or not, something that we wouldn't recommend, perhaps something that we don't enjoy seeing within our industry and our profession, then I think it's fair game that we mention it. We're not being personal. We're not sort of singling out.
Yeah, I agree.
Any company in particular. There's a hell of a lot of good and positives that we talk about. But I will have no hesitation if I see things. And at the end of the day, it's just my opinion or our opinion. It may be right, it may be wrong, but that's all it is. And everyone's entitled to their own opinion. So we will continue, and I'll certainly continue when I see things that I just simply don't agree with, to highlight it and say maybe we should be doing something else.
Perhaps though, it's a valid point. Okay, so and I come from the point of somebody said exactly the same thing to me about that now infamous article in the Currency where the headline was, Carl Widger, financial planner, says many advisors are untrustworthy, and someone challenged me on, be that as it may, Carl, would you not have been better off talking about how you do it and how you think is the best way of doing it? And do you know what? I had to stand back and say that is a very, very valid point. And I'm actually doing a presentation pretty over the next few weeks, and I'm going to start with a picture of that headline, and I'm going to go, actually, do you know what? Use the Oprah Winfrey, the title of her book, What I Know for Sure, and talk about what my values and beliefs are. So I think it's valid, but sorry, Nick, I know you want to get in, but there is a line, and it's important not to cross it. So to generally be more positive than negative, I think, yeah.
I get that. However, in the world of wealth management, I wouldn't imagine there's any other industry where there's so much grifting that goes on in plain sight. And I think we have to call it out. All it takes for evil to thrive is for good people to do nothing about it.
Yeah, look, I agree. And I've just used a profanity earlier on, which was totally unplanned, about active fund management, because I'm very, very passionate about it, right? So I agree, and I will continue to do that. However, sometimes you got to take the feedback on board and go, yeah, okay, I hear you, and maybe we'll focus on some of the positives.
Let's
as Nick shakes his head.
I took feedback on in 1993, and it just ruined most of the year for me.
Worst day of your life.
Okay,
it was the worst 5 minutes.
It wasn't that long. We're at 45 minutes. I think it's time we move on to the meat and potatoes of episode 25 of the Real Advisor podcast. This one...
Go on.
No, please, you've interrupted me now, so you might as well crack on and do a complete job.
No, over to you, boss.
Brilliant. So we're in the dog days of summer, and we're all, I imagine, just taking it a little bit easier now, if only because our clients are often doing things with the money that we've helped them accrue. In other words, spend it on nice holidays and going away with the family, all these value things, these bucket list things that we're very positive about, because we're positive people selling positive things. How do we, as advisors, cope with the summer months? 2 of us are one-man bands. 2 of us are slightly bigger than one-man bands. We all have different ways of coping as advisors and as business owners with the long summer hiatus. Let's go through this, and we'll start with Mr. Hart. What are your thoughts on how you survive and thrive through the summer?
Yeah, so I try and separate my year to block August out my diary, and generally the last 3 weeks of December. Fortunately, in our business, they're quiet months. That's what I found anyway, being a solo advisor. So I try and get all my annual planning meetings done between January and March. I then just deal ad hoc stuff after that. I obviously run a training business and do a load of other stuff. So again, I just block out my diary in August. We're early into August, and I'm already somewhat a little bit bored. I've already been to the Cotswolds with my family, and I'm going to be going to Spain with a few other people and various other things. So I've got stuff in the diary, but I'm obviously just allowing, just keeping on top of things, as it were, watering the garden, as they say. I'm fortunate I've got around about 40 ongoing families, so it's not a huge business, and I can use tech, and I've got a great team and that sort of stuff. I generally don't put an out of office on. I find out out of office is a bit cringy. I'll talk about the humble brag out of office. If anyone's doing it, continue to do it or whatnot. So I send a lot of emails, hundreds of emails every single month. I send an email to someone. I get an automatic bounce back, OOOs we call them, out of offices, and it's humble brag, I'm recharging my batteries in Fiji with my close friends or whatever. I'm spending quality time in my family. And I think, that's quite enviable. 5 minutes later, they send me a reply. So they've done this humble brag out of office intentionally. And then 5 minutes later, they email me, yeah, Andy, I'll sort that out when I get back. And I thought you were away for 3 weeks in Fiji. Why are you emailing me back within 5 minutes? If it's genuine, like I'm away for 3 weeks and I'll email you in 3 weeks, I think that's fine, So yeah, it's quite funny, these humble brag out of offices. So no, I don't put an out of office on, and I'm sort of there for my clients. I don't even really tell my clients I'm not doing much in August. Obviously, I'm around. So yeah, anything important will be dealt with. I've got sort of 3 potential ongoing clients to take on board. I've pushed all 3 of them to September, and they're fine with that. Yes, that's it really. That's my starter for 10. Who's next?
Mr. Smith's coming at it from a slightly bigger operation, more personnel, more things to juggle. But also, I think, and you'll disabuse me if I'm wrong, Alan, gives you the chance to just delegate, and you can truly not be involved in the business while you're spending a couple of weeks in Turkey or what have you.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm fortunate. I've got a fantastic team. It's a self-managing business. It doesn't really need me, and often thrives and does far better when I'm not around. But I that's why I wanted to talk about this, because I don't think I've really got this nailed. And I've just, as I mentioned already, I've taken, Andy, you sort of focus on August. I tend to take July off as soon as the school holidays start. My kids' schools break up a little bit earlier, I think, and as soon as they, so almost the day or the day after, we just take off, because it's a bit quieter in early July. And I've just got a kind of an annual routine we do, go over somewhere warm like Turkey that I've mentioned. And I've just been up to Scotland and seen the folks and seen all the relatives and all the rest of it. And so I've had the best part of a month off. But I'm like you. I don't put an out of office on. But by the same token, I don't really check my emails every day. And that can lead to people, sending emails and expecting a reply because they haven't had an out of office from me. And it's kind of a worst of all worlds. And what I really should do is just close it out completely and just, have an out of office. Just say, it probably, wouldn't be a humble brag, but just say, I'm away, I'm on holiday, I'll be back on the 1st of August or whatever it might be. And then just, but the challenge is, honestly, this is the big sort of issue or dilemma in that I don't find it's no big deal for me checking my emails or keep in touch. Man, you used the phrase before, just sort of pruning the garden. Just, I'm not going to sort of do a complete overall. I'm not going to reply to big, long, complicated emails. But if there's a few things I could just look at, ping a reply back. Similarly, WhatsApp. I mean, I don't know. My life is so intrinsically wrapped up with business and life. And there's some people WhatsApp me, people text me. I post something, I see something. I'll be sort of lying by a swimming pool. I might post something on LinkedIn. It's not the end of the world for me. I don't really close down completely. I mean, I did a bloody trap podcast from holiday.
Yeah.
Pleased to know that there's no faulty fire alarm on this episode.
I read it. Sorry, just to interrupt you. I read a review that Andy will read out in the coming weeks by some guy who's listening to the show.
Checking his house.
He went hunting around his house for fire alarms. Has anybody got in the car and listened to the podcast? He realised it was on the bloody recording. Alan, on your point on emails, could you not? I mean, what I would consider doing in your situation is just for the month or so that you don't want to be checking your emails.
Yeah,
it's just set up a rule in Outlook or whatever you use to forward all your emails to someone in the team that you trust.
Yeah,
and just say, listen, if something comes up, I trust your discretion that you'll come to me if something in my inbox needs a turn. That way you don't have to look, don't get drawn into that looking at your emails.
What he was saying, he's not really that bothered about checking his emails. Pre-kids, I used to be away about 3 months. All right. Pre-kids, I used to be away about 3 months of the year. I wasn't too bothered sitting there, having a beer, checking my emails, replying to important stuff. I'm like you, it's a bit merged. You have to control it though. I mean, on my iPhone, I generally have emails switched off. I've got to go into the Gmail app and turn them all on. It's just like an extra.
Yeah, that's the good thing because it's so easy, as you say, like sitting in the hotel bar or whatever, and just flicking through your phone, isn't that? And then
you certainly don't want to check emails late at night, and you get a grenade in from a client that's a real nightmare to deal with, and you just literally can't sleep. Then, and you're thinking, why have they? I say they, usually a bloke. Why have they emailed me that at that time? Now it's just stress for me to think about, and then you've got to try and piece together your answers. I mean, it's nothing like groundbreakingly awful, but it's just a minor grenade into the business. You then got.
Well, the other thing is getting in. I mean, when I was away, I certainly had a couple of sort of new prospective client inquiries. Now, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they got a bounce back from me saying I'm away for a couple of weeks. I'm sure they would have, waited till I replied and got back. But I was quite keen. I thought, that's good. I'll just reply, get somebody to give them a call, just keep the whole machine moving forward. I really do. So I in summary, I haven't nailed this at all. I've got this kind of blended approach, and on reflection, I think I'd like to at least close down completely for a week or 10 days, and just say not check anything, not as you say, forward emails or. And just
if that is the case, then you can have an out of office on that's genuine, and then ideally don't check it. But if anything is if anything's super important, people have got your bat number, haven't they? And exactly. The joke is, what is it you do, Andy? I live my life on WhatsApp. I'm a financial advisor and I earn my money. I'm on fucking WhatsApp the whole freaking time.
Exactly. That's a zinger
family.
one-liner.
Sorry,
it's a zinger of a one-liner. That's a wicked joke.
Yeah. Carl Widger's got a view on
now.
Carl, haven't you got a view on humble brags and out of office messages?
I do. I think they're a good idea.
Let's hear it.
So, first thing to say, when I go away with my kids, I do not bring my laptop. I turn off all notifications, including WhatsApp.
Carl? Do you have a laptop?
So for the people listening in, the guys here always slag that I don't have a laptop because I never bring it with me. Because I'm like, I'm sure
he has a laptop that never leaves his desk.
No. I do have to work from home sometimes, and I am on the road a lot. But I put on out of office, and I used to put in more detail on it, and I maybe do agree, Andy, that's a little bit ick. But what I put on the out of office is I'm away on holidays with my kids. I've promised them that I won't be looking at my emails for the next few weeks. I'll catch you when I get back. And I leave it at that. And I'm pretty bloody disciplined about it, right? I will maybe look at the emails 4 or 5 times over 2 weeks, but I didn't actually genuinely look at it more than that. I turn off the WhatsApp, although that causes a bit of a problem in California this year because the kids are now bigger and bolder and they're off doing their own thing. So I kind of need to be tracking them down. And then you turn the notifications on and it's like, whoa, you have 140 messages. It's okay though, because mostly there's 98 from the trap pack. So yeah, I look, what I would say is I haven't nailed this either, right? So I've tried lots of different ways. I've done maybe doing kind of a half an hour in the morning or in the evening of emails or whatever, but I did feel that I didn't switch off. So the last couple of years, I have switched off as much as I possibly could. And what I would say though, right, and this is important, right, and I'm talking from the point of view of a firm with teammates and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, we couldn't kind of shut down for the month of August or kind of July and August because we need the money coming in. Frankly, that's just business, right? So I'm always talking to the guys here and the gals here about, taking your time out and do not be contactable. And nobody is to contact anybody and blah, 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 right? Some just want to be on the email and that's okay. But really take rest and recharge the batteries and all that. But then when you come back, right, you're on. And just the final point, until the quarter just gone, right? Q2 this year was our best quarter ever. But before that, Q3 2022 was our best quarter ever by some distance. So business is done during the summer. And I do believe that there's kind of a mindset issue that I'm going to switch off because everyone switches off. But business is done. And we had a magnificent third quarter last year. I'm certainly hoping for, and we are tracking. We're 1 month in now only, right? But we're tracking to do really, really good stuff this Q3 as well. So in summary, I don't have it cracked. And I keep kind of toying with the different ideas and different ways of doing it.
The other thing is,
does your company tends to do better when you go away? Didn't you say that?
That's always been the case.
I think you said it as well, Andy.
Yeah.
Well,
Andy, your finger was raised.
Also, people go on holiday and they think, you know what, I need to get on top of my finances. I need to find a financial, so sometimes there's incoming from people that are chilling behind, chilling around a pool, that communicate a financial advisor because they've got some downtime to think about it. Back to Alan's point, the pruning the garden, there's nothing worse than like going away and just leaving your garden unattended. You come back and it's just a complete shambles. That's why you just...
Oh, it's the worst.
Prune the garden, as it were, in terms of keeping on top of your emails and everything sort of ticking away. I am a solo advisor, but I've got a big team that work for me. So I'm always directing emails and sorting out stuff again. So I need to be active, not being a bottleneck.
Andy, the ultra crepidarian Andy. He knows about everything, Andy. Can't be told anything. His name is Andrew Hart. Andrew Hart.
Yeah, your big team are great, and they're both really nice people. Shall I just close on my views on this? So, like Andy, I am a one-man band with an enormous team behind me, and I am, as you know, dear TRAPists, I'm married to a head teacher, the lovely Penelope. So she is very much bound by her school calendar, and of course, she has the 6 weeks in quotes off, although she spends a lot of time at school. So I try and spend time with Penelope in that time, also because I work from home and I do Zoom meetings. If she was in the house, it's got to be quiet when you're doing a Zoom meeting, and you've got to be totally immersed in the zone. And I just know that it would cause frictions if I booked in planning meetings with clients when she's here, and I want to spend time with her. So I use things like Calendly. Calendly is brilliant. I've got various diaries in Calendly, and all client interactions I put in date overrides. I'm not available through these dates, late July through to late August. I leave my lunch and dinner diaries open. Obviously, you're not going to decline those, are you? And I take my laptop with me when I go abroad because I have to, right? I just have to do it. There might be something that means I have to get my laptop out rather than just dealing with it on my phone. It never actually happens, but I need that comfort blanket. As a business owner, you never really turn off, whether you're Metis Norway or Capital, the bigger firms. You guys never really turn off. I think, Carl, you're the best at it of us, but part of your brain will still be worrying through your business figures for August and so forth all the time.
It doesn't.
This is not a grouch, by the way. Well, whatever part of your brain was, Carl, that part of it probably is. Not a great big part. But we're all, so to put a positive spin on this, we're not maybe employees can just walk away and not worry about anything.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
And then come back, but we don't have that because we've chosen this thing of ours, which is where we own the business, because we're not really employable in a broad sense of the word. So I don't really switch off. What I do, like Andy, with there's no automatic way. We've had this argument before, Andy. Within the Gmail application, you cannot pause emails, but there's a thing called Boomerang, a free add-on that I on the browser, and I pause my work emails. So even if I pick up my phone on the beach and try to look at my emails, I cannot. I don't know what's there. I can't turn that on or off via my phone either. Then once a bit, I'll go back to the hotel room, just put on the laptop, and then just see what any emails that have come in. No, I get so few anyway in the summer months. People, I know, Carl, you do lots of business, but typically my clients, they just don't contact me. Well, they contact me even less in the August period than they do otherwise. And like Andy, fun enough, I've also got 3 or 4 prospective clients coming on board. They're probably the same people, Andy. We're probably pitching against each other. But I've told them, if you do come back to me, we won't progress things probably until the end of August, early September, because most of what we do is not. It's not time critical, is it? It's not. No. We're talking about multi-generational lifestyle financial planning.
Nick, what I found on that point is that a lot of stuff that we may have started to work in kind of February, March, like Andy said, right? People kind of maybe have a little bit more time and they're going, right, I'm ready to kind of implement that. So it's not that we've started the business necessarily, the business relationship in the summer. It's like, people are going, right, let's just go and implement that. So just a minor point on that.
Okay, thank you. No, that's one made. Yeah, you might have sowed these seeds back in, say, February, March, and now the thing's coming to gestation because they've got the time to do it. Absolutely. They can't read another bloody novel by, I don't know, Clancy, whoever people read on the beach. Okay, I think that meat and potatoes is kind of done. We are also over an hour into this absolute shambles.
Absolute shambles.
So shall we move on to actually, I don't really get a choice about this because I can see at the front door that Postie's rolled up. And the sack of Trappist questions is, of course, bulging. And, dear Trappists, if you want to leave a question for us, please do. There's a link in the so-called show notes. We've got 3 questions for this episode. One of them is from a chap called Eamon Prendergast. Eamon, your question, it was about 58 sub-clauses there, so it's a long question. It's about how to run seminars effectively, and basically you want chapter and verse on how to do it. We are going to cover this in the next episode. We're going to focus, because we are obviously great, the Trap Pack. I mean, are there 4 better advisors in the world? No, it's a rhetorical question. However, even we have made mistakes. In the next episode, we're going to go over some of the mistakes we've made, and one of them will include
this podcast
seminars that didn't go well. So we'll bring that into it there. However, we've got 2 more questions from our dear Trappists to get to. So let me just quickly find the drop where I pretend the letter's being opened. There we go. And this one is from Steve Smith. Not Steve Smith, the Australian batsman. At least I don't imagine that is. He's on Twitter as Steve Smith Live. Can the presenters discuss here we go, another one with 58 questions. Can the presenters discuss A, what the financial aspects of their ongoing service agreements are, B, what the clients get for that amount, and C, how they derived any tiers they have? Great show, chaps. It's done a lot of good, so keep doing it. God, blimey. Okay, let's just a quick whistle-stop tour around the room, if we can, of what your charges are and how you got to them and any tiers. Make it short and snappy.
That's the question, Nick.
It's what the financial aspects are of ongoing service agreements.
The financial aspects of their ongoing service agreements. Yeah,
and
what do you charge?
Get for that amount?
Yeah, that's exactly what I just said.
It's an enormous question.
It couldn't be more of what I just said.
Whilst the guys are figuring it out, right, there's a document on our website called Doing Business With Us, and it's all in there. And the tiers are, that's just trial and error over a long period of time. But Doing Business With Us, it's on our website. You'll see everything you need to see amount. There. Oh. Yeah,
for that amount being the chart. What do you think? What is it? Seriously, Steve, Andy, what do you think he's asking?
Okay, what they're asking are, what are our fees? Okay, we're saying that's A, that's us interpreting it. B, what the clients get for that. I mean, you can't answer what the clients get for it in just a round robin style, can we? It's the whole thing we've been talking about. The whole entire being of this show is what we're discussing and talking about. It's a very
it's the annual financial planning review process.
How they get derived, any tiers you use. Okay, I don't really have much to say on that. It's a bit weird.
I mean, this is, obviously our approach to fees is a bit different. We probably aren't going to go through that on this podcast. We should probably come back to that. I was always keeping up my sleeve. We'll have a conversation around retainers, flat fee retainers, subscription type models versus percentage of assets models. Because we've got a very clear range of fees which are not directly dependent upon the assets under management, managed or looked after by the advisory firm. We've sort of derived a pricing structure which is predominantly focuses on things like complexity, but a number of other things as well: complexity and value, also time taken to do particular things. But it's probably, we don't have the scope for it here. If you want to do it, that's a meat and potatoes in itself.
It's a half an hour to answer that question. I mean, this is what I discuss with clients on the onboarding process, with lots of lists of stuff to go
headlines,
through.
The headlines are, broadly speaking, people charge 1% for financial planning, investment management, ongoing behavioral coaching, all that stuff, and there's some discounting for larger clients.
Yeah, that's it. Basically,
in summary.
Yep. My fee agreement is on my website. It's very explicit. It's all this there, and also I say what you get for it. But as ever, we determine the cost. The client determines the value. Sorry, FCA. That's just the way the world works. Okay, on to the second question, and this is from Mr. Kieran Fowley, who's on Twitter as @KieranFowley. How do you chaps turn down new clients when you feel they won't be a good match for you or not profitable? How do you sack existing clients you don't want to service anymore? So I'll have a quick stab at that. They're not clients, are they? If you turn them down, they're prospects. You're prospecting. You're vetting them. It just does. You just kind of know, don't you? If I don't really, I get turned down really, but I don't turn down many. It just doesn't work. Do you like them? Are they going to pay your fees? That's two questions. Job done. And there are there's quite a bit on this. How do you sack existing clients you don't want to service anymore? The Nick Murray scripts. There's stuff in there in the Google group that I run, IFA Forum, and you can join that by going to the Twitter handle @IFA Forum. This is a recurring question. There've been loads of good answers about how you do this. Gentlemen, anything to add?
Well, if we get people approach us and it's clear that for whatever reason they're not a good fit, I just think it's very important always to try to leave them positively. So we would sometimes, it could be what they're looking for, or it could be sort of size or quantum, that relative to, because we've got fees, we've got minimum fee levels, and it's unlikely to be, for some people it's unlikely to be good value for money, and we've got a sort of overall sort of decency level when it comes to our fees. But we'll always want to, we've got a couple of advisor relationships that we will refer them on to, good firms that got a slightly different business model to us. But I've also referred people to Vanguard, to Hargreaves Lansdown, number of other organizations. But we always want any prospect at all that knocks on our door, we want to help them one way or another. If we're not the right firm, we'll either find another firm that can help them because we know and we've pre-vetted it and we've done our due diligence on them. Or, as I say, any number of other. If someone says, "Look, I want to spend £100 a month in an ISA," for example, then there are better organizations to do that. And I think it's important always to help people out as opposed to saying, "We can't help you." Anything else?
Okay. I think that's the word. That's great. We've given some value there. Okay, then without any further ado, let's move on to what many people call Culture Corner. And Storyteller, your one is the first one. We've talked about Human Risk podcast before, so throw some magic new sparkle dust on it.
Have we? We talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's a new episode of it, and it's got, or I think it's a series of episodes that they went. Three of these guys went over to Abbey Road Studios and recorded, I think, 3 episodes there. Paul Craven, Rory Sutherland, and Gerald Ashley, Andy Hart. I think 2 of those 3 are speaking at Humans Under Management. Is that right?
Yeah. Paul and Rory are both
Paul
speaking.
Craven is.
Yeah,
they're both speaking this year. This episode, or this series of episodes that they did just recently, really, really good, and lots of relevance to financial planners when they talk about. I'm not sure which one of it is he's talking. It might be Paul Craven. Does he do a lot of behavioral stuff for asset management companies, investment management companies? Not sure exactly. I know it wasn't Rory talking, but when one of them was speaking, he was talking about how people present information. He was talking about making presentations and how most people, and it would include sort of financial advisors, investment managers, how we get it all wrong, and an exercise that he goes through to do it. So highly relevant to the listeners of this podcast, and some really interesting tidbits and actionable takeaways from those three icons of behavioral finance.
That's decent. I've just had a look.
And there'll be links to that in the so-called show notes, yes, there is.
It's the latest three shows, yeah. Thanks for that, Alan.
Yep. Okay, Mr. Widger, Money Men by Dan McCrum. Carl, you're muted, my friend.
You're still muted.
Aha! It's the Wirecard story. Sorry, guys. I'm actually reading this in book format to try and help me sleep at night, and it's working a treat. There's so many characters involved, but it's absolutely fascinating. And again, I seem to be drawn to these stories about people swindling other people out of money. But fascinating story. Highly recommended. Wirecard story. Money Men by Dan McCrum.
But that's a Netflix show. Is it Netflix or one of those? It's a documentary film as well, which I've seen. I haven't read the book, but I've watched it.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, it's good.
But yeah, really good.
It's good. Crazy stuff. German company, wasn't it?
Yeah, German.
Yes, absolutely crazy.
Completely fabricated.
Makey uppy Asian companies, and But the investigative journalism that went on there is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. So we do need these people. Yeah, really good, really interesting.
Okay, thank you. Leading on from that, the same kind of thing. I want to thank you, Carl, because I listened to the. So I think you mentioned it was the previous episode 24, the Melissa Caddick podcast. The story. This was another financial fraud. Just wow, human beings, man. She, Bernie Madoff was the king of the Ponzi. He's on a different level in terms of the amount, but she lost. I think it was 38 million. Australian dollars. I'm not sure if that is in proper money, but it's still probably quite a sizable amount. But she didn't. Not only did she fleece her, friends and clients, she fleeced her family. This is which Bernie Madoff didn't. I mean, obviously he trashed their reputation, and that's beyond. You can't put a price on that. But he didn't take money from his own family's pockets. But she just. She took money from her parents, and it's just like, and I think
sad stuff, yeah.
It's just, but I am drawn to it as well. Like, it's just like, geez, here we are again, worrying about consumer duty and how, can we justify this ISA switch? And there are people out there who are just sociopathic and just don't have any conscience. So that's really good.
And like the common theme with Madoff and Melissa Caddick was they didn't invest the money at all, ever. They just gave out these kind of fraudulent false statements. So, if you're investing money, try and get some online logins so that you can actually see this thing yourself. I mean, it's pretty standard, you would imagine, these days. But yet, when you hear about these stories, it doesn't necessarily seem to be.
Talking of things like that, just bringing it, timestamp. I shared with you guys this morning. It was just in the BBC yesterday. This local authority, I think it's Thurrock Council, they invested like over £500 million in some what looks like a fraudulent setup of some solar farm organization, and the founder apparently, or someone sort of wrapped up in it. Obviously, this is I presume is going to be some sort of court case coming down the line. Was buying private planes, yachts, Bugattis, you name it. And now the council is technically bankrupt and they've had to cease delivering all non-essential services. I mean, what the hell? £655 million. What?
Yeah,
I read it, Alan. I actually tried to comment on it, and the technology went a little bit haywire on me. But this, I don't know, is this solar wind farm thing? There's we have one of those ones going pear-shaped here in Ireland as well. But that I read that article, Alan. Oh my mother!
It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good because solar It's solar. And we're going to save the polar bears. That's all fine. Don't question the narrative. Invest in solar. Doesn't matter if the money goes down the shithole.
Yeah.
Okay. My final culture corner one is actually this is a bit of a different one. So Penny and I Penny had a party recently. You three were invited. None of you turned up. It's been noted. And we had this guy come along to sing at our party. Penny met him. He was busking on Watford High Street, and she spoke to him and said, "Would you want to come and sing at our party?" I thought, Christ on a bike. What's this about? Anyway, this guy was brilliant. Chris Harvey. He sings sort of jazz, soul. He's got this beautiful sort of molasses dark, beautiful smoky voice, and he was really good. And I'm giving him a shout out because the guy lives in Hendon, down the road from me in northwest London, and he's lived in the same place for 20 years, rented it, and he's been chucked out by his landlord, and he's got nowhere to go. He cannot afford the rents in the UK are just astronomical at the moment. And I want to give this guy, he turned up on time, he played for longer than he said he would, and then he buggered off, and he just that brilliant thing, brings his microphone, brings the lights, just sings, and live music, even as simple as that, it just transformed the party. So there's a link to his website in the show notes. If you're in the home counties area and you want someone to come and sing at a bash, you're having a garden party, what have you, definitely highly recommend Chris Harvey. He was a pro, and we
well done, Nick. That's awesome. Fair play for calling that one out. Well done.
Thank you, my friend. Mr. Hart, Lower Mill Estate, Cotswolds.
Yeah, so I've just returned from the Cotswolds a week with my family. Quite a lot of us hired a big house. It's a great little place there if anyone's thinking about going to the Cotswolds. It's in sort of, they call it the Cotswolds Water Park area near South Cerney, near Cirencester. And the main place I've gone to, I think I've gone to there about 6 or 7 times now. It's called Lower Mill Estate. And the main people that rent out houses there from as small as 2 beds, 3 beds, and then there's obviously as big as sort of 5, 6, 7 beds. It's called Habitat Escapes. So if you want to go somewhere lovely in the Cotswolds, it's really great for London. It's only an hour and a half away from London. Check it out. We had a fantastic week there on the lake with a hot tub, kids going crazy, all the good stuff, lots of ice cream. Weather was not the best, but we made the most of it. So, yeah, if you want to go somewhere really nice in the Cotswolds, the Lower Mill Estate, it's also great for kids. They've got a swimming and paddleboarding and all the other water sports. So, yeah, check it out.
No, it's a beautiful part of the world. My brother lives in the Cotswolds, a village called Blocklin. You and I, Andy, and Penny, we met a few years ago, didn't it? Just in that area. It is lovely. It's just a picture postcard, beautiful. Okie dokie, and I think you're off to Spain, Mr. Hart. Is that correct? That's your
Soya
next trip?
or Sola, depends on how you say it. Yep.
Okay, I've got Sicily next week, which I'm looking forward to. The forecast here, by the way, for the next week. My God, talk about rain.
No.
Okay. Guys, we are now at, look at that, as ever, we kind of always coming around 80 minutes. Are we comfortable? We've done it all. We've been a good effort. Okay, I'm assuming that silence is a yes. So that's a wrap for this episode, dear Trappists. Thank you as ever for your precious time and your input into the show. Please do rate and review us on iTunes. Leave a 6 out of 5 star review. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think we're about 350 subscribers on that now, which is not a bad effort whatsoever. But until the next time, from the Trap Pack, it's adios and take care out there, folks. Thank you for your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.